Music Maestro Podcast. I'm here with Ed Pearson. We're here at Red Light Studios. We've just been down the pub. We've had a little chat. And actually, just before we started, we have a little chat off camera about how you got into music. So I think, first of all, like I did previously, Ed Pearson, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
So I am SVP Marketing at Because Music, with a focus on electronic and dance music, especially. Because is an independent record company based in the UK.
SVP of Marketing for Dance and Electronic is a very weighty title.
It is.
When did that come about? Because it was before...
that was earlier this year.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a bit of a kind of restructure with senior management. So previous to that, I was marketing director, and then. Yeah, there was. We want to have, there's always an electronic and dance thread through Because Music, I would say, but we want to have even more of a focus, and like I'm kind of, that is going to be my focus for the foreseeable, is to kind of broaden out the marketing team and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, listen. Again, we were touching on it just before we got started, but what I wanted to ask you is kind of like, what got you into music? Now, we touched on garage. We're going to get more into UK garage. And it's just, I guess with you in this role of dance and electronic, I guess the question is, has it always been about dance and electronic music for you?
That's a good question. Not at all. Okay. Not at all. Quite the opposite in terms of like such a, I have a really broad taste in music. I know everyone tends to say that.
Yeah, a bit of everything.
But that is true in my case. It definitely started out, dance music came a little later for me, I think. Before that, it kind of had many different phases as you do as a youngster. I think initially, kind of aside from growing up with what my parents listened to and, which was kind of 60s, 70s classic rock. Yeah. Rolling Stones, Beatles, all of that stuff. Yeah. But like in terms of my own identity, I think that started in my early teens with like, I was a skater at that point. Yeah. Still am a little bit, shout out.
Yeah.
But like with everything that involves, so like skater, hip hop, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, all of that stuff, but also your kind of like your grunge and punk and stuff like that.
Did that cover the pop punk thing? Was that you?
Yeah, definitely. Like kind of, if you're talking like Green Day and stuff like that, definitely at that age, like early 90s, like Nirvana, Green Day, all of that stuff. Like, so I was quite into that for a bit. Yeah. And then kind of found my way into garage through, to be fair, through my brother, my older brother by 2 years. He was massively into it. He was like,
What age are you here?
What age am I now?
As in when you got into the garage thing?
14, 15, I reckon.
Yeah, similar to me then,
around then. So yeah, my brother was massively into it, quite like heavily into the scene, DJing all the time, like a part of a crew.
Okay.
All of that stuff.
Pirate radio?
Yeah, I don't think my brother did. I did.
Right. Okay.
But I did the classic, like that's cool. Like follow my brother's footsteps. Totally, I'll go and rinse his decks for free that he's paid for, and then loved it. Like very soon, kind of realised that I loved. Like when I hit that first mix in his bedroom, like didn't look back. I loved it, and it was a massive part of my life for ages. Yeah. For ages, still is.
Well, I'm glad you touched on the garage thing because like I'm obsessed with it. Well, at least I was obsessed with it. Yeah. So I guess if we're to sit here for a bit, when it comes to garage, what was it that you loved about it? I mean, for me, when I think about garage, I think about two-step garage. There's some people that were like 4/4. There's some people like two-step. I always like the more commercial sound. I was Sunship, Club Asylum, MJ Cole. That's where I sat. Yeah. Where was it for you?
I think I was probably in that camp if I had to choose one.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to disregard like New Birth anytime, like all of that. Do you know what I mean? Massively. Like massive tunes that I would always play, still do. But I think if I had to choose, I would be in the two-step camp. Yeah. That's kind of what I went out. Definitely when I was like record shopping, I'd come home with more two-step records.
Where did you go record shopping? Because there used to be like, there was a massive, there was one round the corner from here on Darby Street.
There was Uptown and then there was Black Market.
Yeah.
And I think there was Reckless as well. That might still be there, but that was more, I think that was kind of more swaying towards hip hop at the time.
Yeah.
But mostly, I'd say we went down to Big Apple in Croydon.
Oh,
which
massive.
was like unreal.
That was Scream and Benga, right? That were involved in that?
Scream used to work there.
Yeah, okay.
But it did become more kind of like the dubstep thing was definitely like, I think that's what Big Apple's now known for.
Yeah.
Because Scream kind of,
okay.
You know, he shouts it out a lot and he worked there. But at the time, it was like that's where we went for our garage records, and it was like it wasn't just going down to buy records. It was like it was a hang. Like you get records, you take them up. They give you a needle. You go up and they had like old car seats and booths, and you could just have a stack of records and just work your way through them. They'd let you smoke up there.
Amazing
all of that stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was wicked, man.
So I asked you before. You have already answered, but we'll do it again. In terms of with garage, your favourite garage tune. What is that?
I think it's got to be Gabriel Roy Davis Jr.
Yeah,
I think
massive.
so. Yeah. We actually had that played. That was the last song at our wedding.
Well, okay. So while we're here at your wedding, who's your best man?
Johnny Brocklehurst, who I believe you know.
He's the reason you're sat here now, basically. He knocked me back.
In more ways than one. Believe me.
Yeah.
Shout out, Johnny.
He knocked me back. We will get him in at some point. But he put me onto you, and actually he was into that garage sound as well. Going back there, I guess. So EZ must have been big influence for you. I mean, can't not be into garage, right?
Definitely. EZ's like always the king, I think.
I was obsessed.
We had Wookie play my wedding.
No, why?
That was a moment.
Oh my! How did you do that?
That's a long story. Long story. Many a connection, but it was it was wicked. Quality. My only regret is we didn't record his set.
No,
and it's my biggest regret from that day.
That's mad.
Johnny wasn't doing his best man duties properly.
Okay, cool, man. Well, listen, it's good to hear about the garage sound. I love talking about it. Let's go to now, like, so where did it go? So you were talking about being into garage 14, 15. You're into it for a while. Like, where did it develop there in terms of, I guess, your passion for music? And then when did that passion for music start to feel like it could become a career?
I think a little way after that, like kind of approaching my late teens into my 20s. I think like doing many a different, you know, when you kind of, you know, you come out of school or college or whatever you've done and trying to figure your way. It was, I kind of did that 3-4 years of like dead end jobs or jobs that you kind of, you know, it's not your, you're not,
it's not part of your career.
No, you're not a lifer. So I think at that point I was like, you know, music was still a huge part of my life, whether that was DJing or just like loads of going to gigs like multiple times a week and just like hanging out in kind of, you know, music circles who were kind of like-minded, friends who were a massive influence on me. And so I think that was at the point where I was just like, well, this is definitely what I'm loving. Is there something that I can do with this? Definitely ain't going to be a musician. Probably not going to kind of do the DJ thing because it's just brutal and it's really difficult. So that's when I kind of started looking at like what is a music career if it's not kind of an artist or a DJ or whatever it is, and then kind of started digging into like labels I was always aware of. Do you know what I mean? Like even from the garage days, like Locked On. Always always up there as a garage label for me, and you know whatever it is. So I think that's when I started to think like, you know, kind of what are the opportunities. So it was definitely a kind of a specific like how can I work in music rather than a kind of finding my way into. Do you know what I mean? Or falling into it. It was right. It was a specific.
Did you
thing.
have an understanding of how the industry kind of worked, or the landscape of it?
At that point, not really. Like I was aware of like record labels that had that big identity, like whether it's the majors or whether it's like a Warp Records or a Ninja Tune or whatever that have that kind, you know, that where music fans are aware of the label behind it. But that was the kind of extent. I wasn't aware of like, you know, or maybe I could go in as a, you know, marketing assistant.
Yeah.
Like that all kind of came, you know, as I started finding my way and meeting people and you know.
So I look on your LinkedIn earlier, and the career path, if I've got it right, was PIAS in its previous how it was previously.
Incarnation.
That's it. Yeah, previous Incarnation. Then it was Believe. Then it was Ministry of Sound.
Yeah.
Then it was Because.
Yeah.
So let's start on PIAS then, or at least your intro to the industry.
Yeah, so that's right. It was so at the time, in its previous incarnation, it was cooperative music. This is going back 15 years, and at the time it was part of Universal Music. So I managed to, various different conversation, I managed to get myself onto the Universal internship program at the time, which I think was kind of a 6-month thing, and just found my way into the marketing department of Cooperative Music. I had a good friend of mine there at the time who kind of helped me with that, getting in there as an intern, and then and kind of I've always been in the marketing department in some way, shape, or form since.
So at PS, what was your role?
So by the time I left, I was a label manager.
Okay.
So I was looking after.
So did you just start? What were you, an intern to begin with, or
intern,
what?
Marketing assistant, like product manager, label manager, and I was there for 5 years.
Okay.
So co-op, well, I should say PS, which it's now a part of. It's label services.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a record company. It's a record label itself. It was label services looking after some incredible independent record companies like Heavenly and Bella Union and V2 Records at the time was still a thing. So it was an amazing experience being there.
Okay, so you said 5 years at PS?
Yeah.
And then we did the move to Believe.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, what were you doing there?
So I was there as marketing manager. I think at the time I would say, I mean, this might be completely wrong, but it felt like it was kind of in its infancy at the time, Believe, compared to what it is now. You know, it's a huge company now, but it was very much it was very much building and developing at that point. So we were in a little office down in some industrial estate in Stockwell, which is great for me because I'm in South London. But I was there as their marketing manager within their in-house kind of boutique label. Yeah. So they do obviously all of their kind of label services and distribution, but they kind of established a new kind of small boutique label to sign stuff directly, essentially. And we ended up working with some amazing record and breaking some amazing artists there, like James Vincent McMorrow and I think we worked with Public Service Broadcasting at the time. Some incredible Blue Lab Beats, who are now signed to Decca and doing amazing things. Worked with them when they were just starting out. It was a really good time.
Quality, okay. And so we moved from Believe and how long were you at Believe?
3 years.
3 years to go to Ministry of Sound.
Yes.
That's obviously where we met.
Yeah.
Again, that was a marketing role, right?
Yeah. Still marketing.
And so again, with Ministry, you were on the kind of, it was like they had the compilation side and the single side. What would you call it? The artist side, I guess. I
guess so. Yeah, the label.
And who were you? Yeah, the label side. Who were you kind of working across there in terms of artists?
So I went in and started working with London Grammar.
Yeah.
Sagala. Mm-hmm. Some newer kind of developing artists like Jody Abacus and Louis Berry, legend, and maybe a couple of others. I think cool. The Ministry experience was quite a skewed, odd one for me because I was there. I came in at that point where they'd literally just kind of the rumours of being bought by Sony were just starting to. And I think I'd been there for about 3 days, and I was like, "What? Sorry, what?"
Yeah.
So I was kind of a victim of that. So I had a bit of a warped journey through my time at Ministry, but not to say it wasn't great, and I met some incredible people and artists and stuff. But
I guess it led
to a bit of a bizarre one.
It led to Because, right, which is obviously where you've got this, I said, the weighty title now, and absolutely smashing it there. I think when it comes to Because, I think what would be good to know is, I guess, a little bit about the history of the label without going into too much detail. Why don't you touch on kind of Because, I guess?
Yeah, of course. So we're a French company, and it was founded and still headed up by our CEO, Emmanuel de Bertel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know much about Emmanuel, but he's had an incredible career. He's been involved in various moments throughout the last kind of 30-40 years, I think. But I think what people kind of know him in the industry for is being very much involved in what they kind of coined as French touch. So he worked with Daft Punk, and he worked with Air, and obviously Justice and whatnot through our relationship with Ed Banger, and he was the president of Virgin France through the kind of late 80s, 90s, and did some amazing amazing stuff whilst he was there. Bit of a legend. And then, in the 2005, by which point I think he was president of EMI International, left to start Because.
Amazing.
Which is where we are now.
So I guess the actual setup of the company, it's not just a record label, is it? You've got the publishing leg. You were talking about the kind of the live element as well, the agent.
Yeah, exactly. So Because Group, and then under that is obviously the record company, Because Editions, which is publishing, and then in France we've got live agents, promoters, and festival We Love Green, which is going great guns. It's been I think that's been going for about 6 or 7 years now, and it's grown massively. I can't think off the top of my head who headlined this year, but check it out and it'll give you an idea of where it's at. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so I guess we were talking again earlier about the labels that sit under, because there's Ed Banger, obviously, that's got a lot of heritage.
That's Ed Banger's obviously its own label, but we have we do distribution, marketing services, promotion, and various other bits with our relationship with Ed Banger. And we've been working with Pedro, who's the head honcho there, who obviously managed Daft Punk for 15 years or more. A bit of a legend. I think since the start of Ed Banger, 2007.
Okay.
From what I.
And I guess within
2003. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah.
20 this year.
Within the Because Music family, you've also got labels like London Records as well. Is there any other labels that sit under the umbrella?
Yeah, in various different forms. So there's London Records, which we acquired, I think, just before COVID, I want to say, like 2019. Again, amazing team, headed up by Laura Kelly. She's the MD there, and she's like, the team's really grown over the last little while. I mean, and that roster's like insane. London Records was a bit of a legendary kind of alternative pop label through the 80s and 90s. Got everything from like Happy Mondays to the original Sugar Babes to E17 to fun. Oh my God. Fine Young Cannibals, and everything in between, Shakespeare's Sister. So that's like they're kind of owned and a part of the Because Group. But then we have those relationships like Ed Banger and Dewey as well, which is Dave and Steph, aka Soulwax, Too Many DJs. So we work with those guys in a similar capacity to what we do with Ed Banger, so kind of more of a label services almost and distribution setup. Okay,
cool. So in terms of your roster that you're responsible for, I mean, for me, there's one notable act, which is Major Lazer, without doubt one of the biggest dance acts in the world. Who else, I mean, in addition to them, who else are you looking after within your role?
Major Lazer, that was one of my first ones that I came on to. Obviously, that baton's been passed with various different people, Johnny being one of them. And actually, like the weird kind of full circle moment with Major Lazer is that they were, I think the first record came out in 2009, whilst I was at PS.
Right.
Major Lazer and some of the Diplo kind of solo stuff over the years as well. And then, I do all of the Ed Banger stuff. So like new artists like Mid and Varnish and then obviously, most notably Justice and a load of other amazing kind of French dance and house and electronic stuff.
Cool.
And then what else do I work on? So new kind of young UK rapper from London, Jeshi.
Are you working?
Yeah.
So how does that work within, obviously, when you've got dance and electronic?
The thing is, it's like, I think what you have to remember is that it's like, we're still a small team. I think the dance and electronic title is like, I can still put my hand up for stuff that I'm personally into, and Jeshi's like, personally, I'm like, I love him. He's just like, he's an absolute joy to work with, and I love the music. So if I want to put my hand up with something, we still have the flexibility to do that, which is what I love working, you know, what I love about working for an independent record company with a small team, it can be that hands-on,
totally.
where I can where I can be involved in something if it fits and it works. So yeah, Jeshi. But then saying that, like, there is as I said, there's an electronic thread through a lot of what we do. If you listen to what is one of my favourite tunes of the last 12-18 months is Jeshi's 3210.
Yeah,
that's a dance tune.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
an electronic tune. It's like, so I think you have to kind of think of it in more broad
totally.
terms in this sense. But so Jeshi, Logic 1000, again, like, massively excited about Logic. So many tunes that are about to drop. Been working with her for the last nearly 4 years. Kind of new underground producer, DJ from Australia, based in Berlin. Worked with Logic 1000, Parcels, who are actually a band, but again, it's they make kind of disco funk, electronic music. So worked with the Parcels guys, and lots of other bits and bobs.
Okay, cool. What I want to mention briefly is, like I said to you before, I was on your Spotify playlist earlier for Because Music, and I noticed Georgia Smith. Right. So what I want to do is get you to explain. Yeah. You were saying that Georgia Smith is sung because for France.
That's right.
But not the UK, right?
Yeah.
Explain that basically to people that might not understand why.
God,
that happens.
I mean, it's, do you know what, Dan? It's not even massively my area, but I think it happens a lot where artists or probably management or whoever it is will carve out territories.
Right.
But I'm assuming because they want the best team, label, whatever you want to call it, behind their artists in those territories, right?
Yeah.
So if it doesn't fit for whatever reason to sign an artist for the world, then I'm assuming that's why that kind of happens. I'm sure a million other different reasons as well, but that's kind of how I see it. You know, France, I think at this point we have the biggest independent market share in France as as an independent record company. We have an amazing team there. Proven track record, and I'm sure a massively passionate team for Georgia over there. So, we managed to sign her for France.
So can I ask then, when it comes to Because, like you mentioned, France is obviously the UK. Where else does Because operate?
So in terms of actual Because offices, we've got obviously Paris, London, and now LA.
Okay.
Which was opened, I think, at the start of COVID. And
do those guys have their own roster to deal with as well? That's kind of
not
to them,
in the US yet, but that's kind of, it's early doors. US is a big scary market.
Yeah.
So at the moment they'll be working stuff that we've got US rights or world rights for, that we sign either out of the UK or France.
Yeah, cool.
But I think long term the idea would be to hopefully grow that to a point where we can start signing domestic artists in the US.
Okay, great. What I want to do now is talk about. How long have you been in this role Because now?
As in my current role, or how long have I been at Because? 6.5 years,
okay.
I think.
That's a good innings.
I
guess within that, then it's worth discussing some of the kind of highlight campaigns you've worked on. I think obviously there's perhaps Major Lazer to chat about. I think for me the one that always stands out, and I mentioned you before, is Stardust. The music sounds
definitely
better with you. Let's start with that one. I mean, it's got to be a highlight for you.
I think it's probably the highlight, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I think for many different reasons. I mean, first and foremost, it's like one of the best tunes of all time, and in terms of a dance record. But also it was a catalogue campaign, right? Because it came out in 97.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, on that point alone, like, it was originally released in, I think it was 98.
Yeah, I think it was 98.
And so it wasn't part of Because then?
No. So it was on Thomas Bangalter's label, Thomas from Daft Punk's label, Rule.
That's right, yeah.
Roulé.
I say Roulé.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. I think there's an accent on the E. Blimey. Boss will kill me for that. No, so it was out on Rule. And then I think it went through maybe various different kind of ownership and rights holders for a few years. I think it might have ended up. God, I can't remember now. Oh, it was Parlophone, I think. Maybe had it in some way, shape, or form for a bit, and then we acquired it for I think maybe 2017, 2018, just before the 20 first anniversary, I want to say, because we released it in 2019. Basically, the thing, it had never been officially released on digitally.
That's right. Yeah,
on streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, and and repressed from the original lacquers, and did various different kind of remastering projects across the video content and whatnot. But I think that was a first for me, as in working a catalogue campaign.
Well, that's what
I've never done that before.
I was going to ask is, you've already mentioned that. First off, not everyone may not know is like Stardust was one half of Daft Punk, so that's a massive thing, a massive hook. When it comes to marketing it's already a classic tune in its own right, I should say. So what is for you in that experience? How does a catalogue campaign differ to promoting something like, or marketing something like Major Lazer?
Well, I think first and foremost, there's already an audience there. Well, I mean, there's an audience for Major Lazer, but I think I know what you're getting at. There's already a massive audience there. Not to say that half your job's done, because it's not at all. The record came out a long time ago, so it's about kind of hitting those sweet spots of like reminding people of this tune, whether that's in a kind of like nostalgic way or I felt like that campaign that we did was quite traditional, because obviously there's no Stardust socials, and it wasn't something that they were interested in establishing at that point. So we had to think around that in terms of bringing it into a newer way of working in terms of like your social platforms and whatnot. So that was definitely a bit of a kind of hurdle to navigate. But other than that, it was a really fun kind of traditional campaign. We did like big fun billboards and a club campaign, and like hit up all of the kind of people from that era to like share their stories on the record and all of that stuff. So it was I don't know if that's answered your question.
But
like,
totally. I guess it's weird because, like you say, it's like we're talking about one of the most iconic dance songs of all time.
Absolutely.
And you say, what? I guess there's it's not that there's already an audience. There's like people are familiar with this song.
Yeah, definitely.
So when they're already familiar, when it comes to kind of re-promoing, when you're so used to dealing with frontline music, I guess what was the objective with a release like this?
I think that that's it. It was first and foremost kind of hitting that core fan base that loved it the first time around. Vinyl collectors, because there was a limited edition vinyl. I think, and then kind of hopefully with the ultimate aim of growing it out to a younger, new fan base that might not be aware of the tune. And I think that was where the streaming campaign kind of I think was really helpful. But it took a while. Like when it was released, it was like we saw we saw good support and good movement, as you'd expect, but it took best part of, I'd say, 12 months.
Wow.
From when we released it to where now we've doubled the sales of what it did originally. It's now a double platinum record. It was a platinum record to begin, from where we picked it up. But I think at that point, especially the kind of the playlist ecosystem at the time, I think it's definitely improved now. There wasn't a massive, there wasn't everything Sony music focused. There wasn't a lot of room for kind of classic hits or catalogue stuff. There's like your classic dance hits or whatever, but there wasn't a lot of it. And I think it really took a moment to kind of reconnect and grow, which it very much has done now. Yeah,
it's weird because I would say like it was so late on coming on, like let's say streaming platforms. And like the music streaming had already for me matured, and so everyone already had their personal playlists, let's say. And Stardust wasn't on it. Like obviously you've got the algorithms that I'm sure. I remember actually
there was some like dodgy.
Some dodgy cover, wasn't there? Yeah, I remember.
Like karaoke versions. That's still a mystery to me how those ones like make it on there. But that was another process of like having to pull those down or whatever.
But yeah, I guess it is interesting because, like I said, everyone's kind of got their playlist. You've got all your classic tunes, and there are sometimes there are songs that are still not available, like. Even let's say we take Spotify, for example, what's the process with them in terms of like, you've got this classic song, you take it to their platform. What do they do to start kind of pushing it?
Well, you know, we teed it up as soon as we knew we were working it, and we went in, and it's a difficult one because I remember those meetings, and obviously you don't get a ton. You only get a handful of opportunities a year to go into the streaming platforms and like sit down and play stuff. So and
what a moment that must have been to press play on Stardust.
But everyone's heard it.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah,
so like you're going in and you're playing new Major Lazer or new Jessie or new Shy Girl or new Chrissy and the Queens or whatever we had at the time. Massively exciting. But then it's kind of like it's a weird one. It just, you know, it's obviously everyone's is aware of, any music fan especially is going to be aware of Music Sounds Better With You, but you've only got a finite amount of time in those meetings, which is usually not a lot. So do we use 4 minutes of that on playing do you see what I'm saying? But no, that, like, I'm not being unfair. Like, everyone was massively excited about you know, that kind of being available on streaming platforms officially, and everyone was really supportive. But I think at the time there wasn't the landscape to support it in a way that is probably deserved. But that's changed now.
Okay,
you know, that's changed.
Okay, so that's Stardust more on the kind of catalogue side of things. We've mentioned Major Lazer. Would they appear in some of your highlight campaigns?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like, you know, it's an absolute circus in terms of being a part of that, you know, truly global kind of star, like global artist campaign, anything, whether it's a big hit that's happening or otherwise. You know, we've done a lot of kind of more niche, like specialist stuff with the Major Lazer guys, which have all been, you know, we released a record this year, which a lot of people probably haven't heard because it's an Amapiano record. You know, your fans of Lean On and Cold Water it's not necessarily going to make its way through to them, and rightly so. Because they've always had those kind of cultural moments. That's where they came from, right? Yeah. You know, it's not Lean On every time.
Well, and actually, your time at Because came was it just after Lean On?
Just after, yeah. Well, I came kind of on. I worked like the back end of Cold Water with Justin Bieber, but then the first track of single release that I properly kind of managed was Run Up with Nicki Minaj. Which again was a massive hit, and a massive tune. And then it was No Better with Camila Cabello and Travis Scott, and then I mean, like, at the time they were so prolific. There was a ton of releases around that time.
So was there any of the Major Lazer releases that stand out for you in your time there?
I mean, they have to, because I'd like, you know, they were massive kind of global hits. So it was really exciting. I've never really been a part of that before, not directly, you know, managing it. So it was brilliant. But then, like, I mean, like loads of, like, the record this year, Piano Republic is an amazing piece of work. It's like, again, it's kind of, in my opinion, what it's Major Lazer doing what they do best in terms of like hitting kind of cultural spots. And there's a wicked remix album that goes along with it with like Joy Orbison remixes and stuff, and it's quality. Like, it's brilliant. Okay. So that's been like a recent highlight from those guys. Okay.
In terms of, I wanted to ask, like, within those campaigns, what would you deem the kind of most successful one you've worked on? And I guess success can be measured in many different ways, but I guess I'll just leave you to answer kind of during your time at Because, what is the most successful campaign you've worked on?
That's a good question. I mean, like, the automatic, like, the kind of default is to think like what's been the most successful commercially, which would be the above, Major Lazer and Stardust, but also Aluna, who we now work with. Previously kind of on hiatus, part of Aluna George.
It's funny because just on that, I don't know if I'm alone in this. I don't think I am. For a long time, I thought Aluna George was Aluna. Am I alone in that?
Possibly not. I don't know, to be honest. I'm not sure.
Because obviously my first exposure to Aluna George was the Disclosure White Noise record. I'm sure they did things before, but it was because you heard that voice, and that was, for me, that was Aluna George.
Yeah. It's not. Incredibly distinctive voice, and still has, like, I feel like she's just getting going. Do you know what I mean? Because she's got so much, like, she's an incredible artist. We've been working with her for like 3 years now. So we did her debut solo album Renaissance in 2020, summer 2020, and she's been pretty much just kind of continued putting out music since then. A lot of it now is kind of predominantly just dance music. So she did a tune with Diplo, Jada G, Tisha, some amazing records. And we just released her second album, Mycelium, at the beginning of the summer. And I would say, it's definitely got a way to go in terms of where we think she can get to commercially. But it's in terms of I want to say a success story. It's not easy starting as a solo artist of previously very successful duo or whatever you want to call it. It's tough. It's really tough. And I think she's done it brilliantly because she makes really good music, but she's got really interesting takes on where dance music is, where it comes from, the heritage of it. But she's also always got exciting projects going on. She's developing a club night and eventually hopefully a festival, maybe even a label called Noir Fever, which is in support of Black and LGBTQ community artists and DJs. Loads of stuff. I think she's one to watch. Absolutely.
Okay, good stuff. So there's a few questions I need to ask you here. I'm not sure what order to approach them. So I guess I'm going to go with this. I wanted to, we've already chatted about Because Music, its history, how it's set up. How do you feel that Because Music differs to other labels? What does it have to offer that perhaps others don't?
Gosh, that's a tough question. What do I feel like?
I guess in the same vein, for me, it would marry up with perhaps why you've been there for 6.5 years. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's a really good way of framing it. And I think if you look at it like that, for me personally, it's I think first and foremost, I've had the privilege of working with some incredibly experienced and amazing people through my time in music. But I think just in terms of where I'm at now and being able to work so closely with someone like Emmanuel, comes with its challenges. Anyone to tell you that, but he's very he'll invite you into his world. Do you know what I mean? He'll open doors if you need them opened. He'll or try anyway. He's very much kind of my house is your house kind of approach, and I love that. If there's anything if you've got an idea or you want to try something, whatever that is. At the moment, I've got a little project that I'm working on with our A&R team, which is kind of hopefully signing some new kind of underground dance and electronic artists. More of that to come when it's ready. But he's always up for that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's fully supportive, unless it's something completely bonkers and ridiculous. But if it makes sense and it's it works, he's kind of down.
Okay.
And I think that's really special and it's quite unique, especially in this day and age. So I think that's, in my experience, is what kind of makes it stand out as a place to work and a label to work for.
Okay, cool. And I guess within that, then there's the wider team. It'd be good to kind of talk about the rest of your team. I'm sure you've got some great guys working for you.
We do, guys and girls.
We're working with some at the moment on a couple of campaigns. Let's talk about them. Let's give some of them a mention.
Absolutely.
But also it'd be good to talk about the kind of work culture, because I think it's important to talk about the culture of companies. I think with the music industry, obviously it's all I'm exposed to, and you are as well.
Yeah.
It's full on, man. I mean, it's very intense, and so I think touching on a personal experience when I was at ministry in the independent days, it was you put you to the brink basically, but the working culture was so great. As an independent, we were a family, so I always say the kind of work hard, play harder approach, but it was great to be a part of. So when you're having a tough day, you could deal with it because you had a great team around you basically. Was that the same for you guys?
100%, man. And I think you're absolutely right in terms of giving a shout out to the team. So we're headed up now by Rihanna Manuel. She's our new brilliant MD as of earlier this year. She also is still on the front line with me as well, working campaigns. So she works. She does amazing things with Christine the Queens and is developing Shy Girl. Obviously, just nominated for a Mercury this year, last month. Like, yeah, going great guns among lots of other stuff. And then, I mean, we've grown as a team. We've got Aaron, who's been there from day dot. He's longer than any of us, and he is the absolute rudder.
Yeah, the OG,
the OG rudder, 100%, 100%. He knows where all the skeletons are kept. We've got Hector, our head of A&R, Uche, our A&R manager. Mm-hmm. We've got Catherine, who's just joined us, content ops. I'm literally working through where
I feel like I've told you to do a speech and you're worried about forgetting someone.
I'm working through the desk setup.
Yeah.
So who's opposite me? We've got the wonderful Daisy, marketing assistant, who works really closely with me. She's brilliant. She's been here for a year now. And then we've got the digital team, who are obviously on the front line every day, just where the industry is. I'm sure I absolutely do their heads in. So Rose, who you know, Ian, head of digital, Jack, who I think you might know as well. He's Hannah's partner. Yeah. So he's been there for a few years. We've got Ollie, head of sync. We've got Ruth, our office manager. Keep going. And then we've got the brilliant London team. So that's the Because UK who's in the office. So but it's grown exponentially over the last. I mean, I think we were 5 when I started, and now we're all of the above. We're 14, 15, I think, not including London. So we're actually kind of 25-ish, I think, including in the London crew.
How do you manage the turbulence of what is working in the music industry? Because like I said already, it can be kind of full on. It sort of comes with the job. I mean, I always kind of think like the very fact that you're working within your passion, and you kind of it comes with the package, so to speak. How do you deal with that? How do you switch off? Can you switch off? Yeah,
absolutely. No, I don't think you can completely, depending on what kind of role you're in, and I think you kind of have to be aware of that. But like, it's not. You have to manage your time as well. I think you have to. It's kind of down to you how you manage your time. Like, I think you do have to draw a line somewhere. Yeah. But you're working with artists who might not necessarily be around at 3 p.m. but might be around at 8 p.m. Yeah. To have a WhatsApp chat or whatever it is, or later than that. And I think that does come. That comes with the job. Absolutely. To answer your question, yes, it's carnage the whole time. There's no getting around that. And I think I think it's something that we're going to have to be really mindful of as things develop, because I think the reason for that, I mean, it's always been like that, but it feels like it's getting even more so. And I think that comes down to the fact that nothing's finite anymore in terms of being in and out of campaign. Yeah. I think that kind of, that age of an artist being in like album cycle or whatever you want to call it, touring, then they go away and record for a year or so, and then 2-3 years after that it's time to go again. Because of social media and that notion of like having to be on and
always on
and communicating the entire time, that means that kind of no one, that kind of has a knock-on effect for everyone, I think, because a lot of the time we need to be thinking about helping them create that content, whatever it is, or whatever it is. I think that's the real reason why it feels very, very chaotic and busy, more so than it ever has. And I feel like it is potentially getting worse. Yeah.
But I guess that's not exclusive to Because, right? Not
at all.
I think it's not exclusive to even record labels or the music industry. Totally. It just is 100%, everywhere,
whether
right?
you're a brand or whether you're, whatever. Yeah, absolutely. It's just the way the world is moving. Yeah. Totally. But, I think at some point you do have to step back and think about how to kind of navigate that a little bit better, because, artists will burn out. It's a lot to ask of them. Social media is a full-time job, and every other week there's a new platform that we are testing or want to have a meeting with or think about, them putting content up or whatever it is. It's just getting more and more and more and bigger. So I think that's one thing that, I think we all as an industry need to keep our eye on.
Okay, so we sort of touched on it there. What I want to talk about now is how you and your artists are navigating social media for your marketing campaigns.
Okay.
Big question, I know.
It is a big question, and it's very case by case, especially for a roster like ours. I think the obvious answer, the obvious kind of topic for conversation there is are we obsessing over TikTok? I think everyone is. We'd be lying if we said we weren't. But I think what we do try and do, we could probably do a bit better, as I'm sure everyone could, is not to obsess over that and really try and be more mindful and targeted about what it is you're trying to achieve with each campaign, with each artist. You know, it's not cookie cutter. We try not to like force all of our artists onto TikTok and post about their cat or whatever it is. You know, that's probably a bit old school now. But you see what I'm saying? So I think if we've got an artist that is more au fait and has more kind of connection on Instagram, then that will kind of be bumped to the top of the list in terms of how we're strategizing. And we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that accordingly across all of our artists. I know that's a bit of a broad answer.
It's a bit of a broad answer, but it's a broad question, to be fair.
Yeah, but I think in short, we try to be as kind of, we try to kind of build the strategy as applicable as possible for what we're trying to achieve and what we're doing with the artists.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think it's not all about TikTok all of the time, but it's definitely something that we're all speaking about.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So something I don't want to labour, but I feel like I have to at the moment in terms of a topic. I mentioned again this before, is AI. I'm interested to know whether you think AI in regards to music, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing?
Again, a really broad question, and I think it depends where you're coming from. Is it gonna replace dance music producers? Are we going to be in clubs listening to AI music and not know the fucking difference? Possibly. That's terrifying, right? And we definitely need to try and kind of circumvent that or at least work with it. And I think that's the important thing, is that it feels to me like we're, I think, approaching it in a more positive way than take piracy, for example, where it was like, shut them all down. I don't think we're doing that. Everyone's like scared and apprehensive about it, but it feels like there's more of a willingness to potentially lean into it, and see how we can kind of make it work for us, with us, whatever, at the moment. But I think it holds really exciting kind of elements as well. Like, I think in terms of creating content, when it gets to that point, that could be really, obviously there's always going to be an overhanging, overarching theme or conversation of like, it's going to put us all out of business.
Yeah. Hopefully not us.
So. Hopefully not you guys, or us. But I think like at this point, I mean, I'm not a tech head, to be honest, Dan, I know very little about it, but at this point, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're still behind it. There's still humans behind the usage of AI.
Well, you've got to have an operator. Yeah,
exactly. So I think we're still at a point, hopefully, where we can kind of like, it doesn't need to be the end of days. I'm sure there'll be some lunatic who like ends the world with it at some point. Of course, there always is. But at the moment, creatively, I don't see why it can't be more of an exciting proposition than like the knee jerk, like shut it all down. It's going to put us all out of a job. But I can be an optimist. Yeah,
I mean, listen, I personally, I think that it makes sense to view it as an opportunity rather than being scared of it as a threat.
Yeah, definitely. And I like to think as well, especially creatively, that if you had a piece of music, maybe not dance music because it's different, but if you had I don't know, John Lennon, right? And you've got Imagine, and then you've got like a machine-created similar tune.
Yeah.
This machine-created similar vibe tune to Imagine might be good. The novelty would be quite, I'd listen to it maybe once, twice. Then I'm going back to John Lennon's Imagine, because it's like, what I'm trying to say is this human connection.
Yeah.
I like to think that there'll always be an element of that.
Yeah.
Especially for creative people. But then, we're only that's such a small part of it. When you get into big tech and big business and corporations, it's a whole nother conversation. But in terms of music, I think people want human connection, and I think as a tool, it could be an exciting thing. But yeah, we'll see.
Cool. Okay. Well, listen, I've got one more question before we end. And there's different ways in which you can answer this. I'm interested to know your take on I want to look to the future. What do you think is the next big thing in music? And that can be, like I've said already, a trend. That can be a genre. That could even be an artist on your roster. What do you think?
AI.
Yeah, fair play. Okay, yeah, good.
And lots of other exciting stuff that we've got coming up. But yeah, probably AI.
Cool, mate. All right. Well, listen, really appreciate you coming down. I think this has been a quality chat. Glad to have you on.
Thanks for having me, man. This has been wicked. Nice one.
Cool, mate. Nice one.